Idea Zone watchers. Welcome back. I had a week off, which was really great. I really needed it. I was getting burned out of doing this. So gratitude to the producers for letting me take a Dennis Rodman and just go ride my bike and get a little tan, and beaches opened up. And so that was really great. That was a really great thing. And today we're going to be back with you with our first, we have a sort of a surprise guest today. I'll be honest with you, this series of videos is, it's a huge blessing to me because the people behind it really believe in it. As much as I make fun of this show, the people behind it really believe in it, and they really like the show, and they think it's good, and it's easy and fun for me, generally speaking. And we just hope that you people who are watching it out there will share it with some friends, because for the most part, it appears to be more of a hobby for us to do it than a real show. It's very beautifully produced because the people, again, who do it they care about it and they want it to be good. But we kind of need you viewers to think of a few people who you think would dig it, because like one or two devoted people who will watch it over and over are better than just like a freak rash of eyeballs clicking on the video. That's really more valuable to us than just a flash in the pan thing. And also, we have some deadbeat comics who don't share the video, and I don't know. I'm just trying to get people on who I think are funny. I don't always know who the deadbeats are. So it's just a little precursor to today's episode to share that with you. And today will be the first day that we have on somebody who's not a stand-up comedian or has not come through stand-up comedy. But it's very, very funny and special person who I like a lot, and I think you'll dig him. And so we're gonna meet him in a second. Just kind of waiting. It's a few minutes before the broadcast, but I start recording because I never know when the technology is going to cut out, and I want you to have a full episode of shit to watch. So that's why I do this, because sometimes the guests can't get in, so I'm left yammering and filling the silence with sound, which is what a lot of comedy is about. Unfortunately, it's not always brilliant, and sometimes it's just somebody like singing the fucking national anthem to a room full of nobody. And so that's what our show ends up being a lot of times. But this guy, we got some things to discuss. I've got some questions for him. He's someone I admire, different field than mine. Not that we don't sort of overlap, but we'll talk about, get into how we met and a little bit of his career. And there's a lot I don't know about him, so I want to ask him stuff today. Very, very successful working actor, great guy, and that's what the main thing. Great guy, just a great guy, an all-around good person. So we'll see you in a minute. I'm sure he'll be here in a few minutes. I'm gonna just chill. Sean,
what's up?
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you safe there at home with the mask?
Listen, I just felt it was better safe than sorry. I owe it to my community and to the nation and the world at large to do my very best.
Well, you look like you are a hostage you are the holder of the hostage, and I am the negotiator.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. No Idea Zone. I told you we had a special guest today. This guy's amazing. He's gonna do his best Gaddafi negotiations over the. You definitely look like you're negotiating for Al Qaeda. I got to tell you.
So we've started the interview now. Is that right?
It's been recording. I actually did a little promo because I never know when the Zoom's gonna cut out. So I don't want to leave people hanging, but it's just recording, and then the producer will edit it up.
Well, the truth is that I'm wearing the mask, to virtue signal, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that I wear a mask. So I'm going to take it off if that's okay.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, actually,
Yeah.
John.
I
mean, we've had some attractive women on the show.
Yeah.
But if we don't see your face,
that ain't happening today.
no. But look at you. I mean, this is a picture of beauty to me.
God bless you. Back at you, man.
So let's get right into it. I'm going to introduce you, give you like a little formal introduction, and then we'll get with the hard questions. Okay.
Okay. Hard. Okay. All right.
People in the No Idea Zone. I told you this is the first guest that you're going to get to see who's not chiefly a stand-up comedian. He is a improv. He has done improv, sketch, and he is a working actor, a working comic actor. Mm-hmm. He was just in the amazing play that I saw live, The Communion of the Christopher Boy. Did I say that right?
The Christopher Boy, yes. I thought you said Boyd, and I was trying to all those. It sounded like you said like 5 random words.
Technology.
No, that seems like a billion years ago, but that actually is and was the title of the play. Yeah. And
that just went off actually just before we all locked down.
Just before. And I've been to Laos in between. So,
Wow. You were one of the last people I saw before this happened.
Well, let's see. Did you come closing night?
Mid-February. It was like February 15th or 16th or something like that.
And then we closed up toward the end of February. And then I went to Laos March 4th. So, and then I came back from Laos. Huh?
What was going on in Laos? Were you filming something?
No. I was going, this is going to be super funny. I was going to visit the crash site where my father died in the Vietnam War.
Oh, man.
So let's talk about that for a while because that should be good and funny.
Well, why don't we circle back to that so I can give you your introduction? Okay. Okay. So this guy was in this amazing play that our friend wrote and directed. This brilliant friend of ours, who we can get into also a little bit later. But also, he is the one of the stars of the show Barry, which many of you probably watch and dig. And he's one of the stars, supporting actors of the amazing final chapter of Twin Peaks, which I just thought was fucking amazing, John.
Oh, thanks.
And you were funny as hell, and really a nice guy, one of the nicest guys who had played a pretty vicious, cruel role in that.
Oh, thank you.
John Pirruccello, ladies and gentlemen, my friend.
Oh, that was all the introduction. I thought this was the interview. We've been at this a while.
It sort of kind of bleeds in and out, brother. This is.
I am John Pirruccello. You are Stephen Lolli.
Yes.
We have introduced, so nobody has any excuses going forward.
So let's get into the first hard question I have for you before we get to the Vietnam War, and I realize we could do all kinds of uncomfortable shit without saying anything ever political, which is a beautiful thing. Your last name. I want to start off with this operatic last name of yours.
Oh, I've never heard it said that way before.
4-syllable. I mean, you're a guy with a name. I'm Lolli. I have an Italian last name too.
You are a WAP as well, yes.
But it's a 2-syllable last name. It's meant for stand-up comedy. It's meant, but you have a name that could.
It's meant to get your name out quicker than 4 syllables.
Well, you'd think lollipops, but I had to do that. But anyway. Oh man. But Pirruccello is like you could write poetry.
Pirruccello.
Compose an opera. I mean, you could be a philosopher with a name like that.
Well, yeah, with the name like that, you'd have to then have philosophies, which is, I think, where I would start to fall short. I have no opinions.
The virtue.
I hope you're not going to ask me my opinion about anything because I have no opinions.
The virtue signaling was a good opinion.
Oh, good. You're reading between the lines like a true stand-up, picking up on the nuances, the minutia of our existence.
I like your Bill Murray moves. You know, you have Bill Murray moves comedically. I like how you use your sarcasm, and I think what's great about you is that you're lovable, and I think that was the same with Bill Murray. Was he was able to pull off fairly heinous shit because we just liked him so much. We wanted to see that guy like injure the other team.
Well, that's an enormous compliment. My God, there might not be a bigger one. Thanks.
Well, the virtue signaling was a Bill Murray move. That was all. That was full on Bill Murray. Post up.
Came to me right at the last second. I walked past the mask on my way over here, and I thought, I should probably put that on. And then it took me 10 minutes to get connected.
I walk around without the mask outside. I don't feel comfortable walking out.
But you put it on once you get inside.
Inside, so you walk around with the mask for my own
inside protection. With the mask, outside no. You know what? I think that it's going to take a balance of ideas to get through this, and so we're going to need that sort of outside the box thinking in order to solve this thing, Stephen. So
that's what you get when a guy named Lolli starts having ideas.
All right.
So brother, I want to ask you some amazing questions about your amazing career.
Okay.
You have this. You are a working actor, right? Am I right to say that that's pretty much? I mean, I think you have a nice career, but I would describe you as a working actor. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah. I haven't had a day job since '97, I guess. And so I guess that means I'm a working actor. I rent my house and drive a 10-year-old car. So I don't know. Does that paint the picture?
That paints the picture. You don't have to lay brick or sell insurance.
Well, fortunately, I'm very lucky in that way. Very, very lucky. Just when it sort of seems like I'm about to, head for the bricks and start laying them, something comes through,
What?
I'm ready though. I'm ready.
Oh.
I notice bricks. There's bricks out there right now. I kind of go through it in my mind sometimes just in case. I would be a fucking terrible bricklayer. That's like an actual skilled job, bricklaying.
Yeah. That's an essential worker.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you need to have a nice little brick wall around your yard. Just to tell the neighbors how fancy you are. I think cinder block, or what would you? Mine actually is. Well, it's actually my neighbor's wall around there. It actually is cinder block, but it's got some accents in it that are fancy cinder blocks. So it's cinder blocks and then
an Armenian Nouveau Russian kind of design, or
kinda, yeah. Very good. And that's about exactly right.
I've seen.
They're Chinese. They're Chinese, but you were close.
Same hemisphere.
They might have bought it from some Armenians. I have no idea. I've only been here a few years.
They may have, and just been like, we don't want to remodel. We're just happy to have a house.
We've always dreamt of living the Armenian lifestyle.
The Armenian wall.
Yeah.
There's something funny about Armenians. Armenians I don't think have been, the humor hasn't quite been mined yet in comedy to the point where I think it's going to be.
I think part of it is that most people have no idea about Armenians and what, they hear it and they hear us talk about it, but they don't really know what the culture, in Los Angeles, that may be less true, but I think, most places,
where I moved from, there were no Armenians. I didn't know any Armenians till I moved here.
Yeah.
So,
and then,
how about you?
The place is lousy with them. Thank God. Thank God, because I need to put gas in my car and get a car wash and, and have delicious food and have nice conversations with interesting people.
And, not have hostility when you drive through Glendale.
I know. I bet I was a West Sider are you West Side? Are you Santa Monica?
No, but Playa del Rey.
Okay. So I was in Santa Monica forever when I moved. I moved here in 04 and just came out east where I'm in Montecito Heights here, kind of near South Pass. This will be very interesting for anybody in LA.
Yeah, where is that? Can you tell me where? Can you give me a better idea of where that is?
Well, it's near Highland Park, South Pasadena, Alhambra.
Oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice, John.
It's beautiful. Yeah, there's trees, like greenery, hills. There's rolling hills.
Chinese neighbors with Armenian walls.
Chinese and Mexican neighbors, man. The 4th of July is nutty.
Oh, it's going to get wild over there.
It's wild. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, forget social distancing on this 4th of July.
But
yeah, so it's nice there.
So anyway, the point is, I didn't know about all these things like, oh, Glendale's full of Armenians and whatever. I never knew any of that stuff because all I knew was the West Side, and I didn't. To me, like where I'm at right now, might as well have been, Idaho. It was, it was east of the 405, which I would do as little as possible. I'd have to go into Hollywood and, oh, wow, I got to go into Hollywood and go to that studio or whatever it is. But the idea of like living out here was unimaginable. And now Glendale and Burbank, and these are places that like I go to do stuff and get things.
Right.
And I meet lots of interesting Armenians.
I'm 90% sure that was sincere.
It is sincere, actually. I went and test drove a car, and it was an Armenian gentleman, and he was a trip, man. He was a trip.
Cool.
Yeah.
So 97 was the year you were able to begin, taking a deep breath and making a living as an actor.
Somewhere around there. There's, of course, gray area because although there's really not gray area because I was a cab driver for 5 years in San Francisco, which is where I was living. And I remember one day walking into the, the little cab driving it's a subculture, man. It's some interesting cats in the cab drivers. I could tell you cab stories all day. But so I walk into the, little shack that the boss lives in, this dingy little, oasis, right? In power, the center of power of the cab stand.
The power kiosk.
The power kiosk. And I said, my grandparents are having a 50th wedding anniversary or whatever it was. And I need Saturday off. And he goes, nope. And I just looked at him. It's like in my mind, it's so etched in my mind because it's kind of unique, right? I just looked at him and I go, okay, well, I quit. It's like I've been doing it for 5 years, and I turned around. Oh God, I'll never forget this. I turned around and I'm walking away from him toward the door, and the voice in my head was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Are you fucking crazy? You have no other way to make a living." And then the next voice that came into my head was, "Well, acting better work out, sir, because this is it. You just did it."
Was that the last job you had before?
Yeah. Yes. That was it.
It's not crazy to say that there was a little angel looking over on your shoulder there.
I think so. It seems pretty, divine, really, in retrospect. It's just almost like a cliche or something. It's so powerful, right? It's
a cliche because I've heard other successful people who have done the same thing. My buddy Mark Brazil, who had a set at the La Jolla Improv, and he said to the guy, he goes, "I got to go do my set," and he goes, "That's your hobby. This is your job." He was selling cars, and he goes, "Not anymore," and he quit right there.
I love it.
This is his last job, and he ended up creating that '70s show and writing for all these. So it's a cliche
so cool.
Because so many people have had that experience where they kind of did some big middle finger to the universe. Took a big risk like you, and then they end. So what was your break? What was your
break?
Well, break is the one.
I'm an overnight success after 20 years.
What was the stabilizing? Was there a stabilizing moment? A job that made like for me, it was writing for Cat Williams. I got to write for Cat Williams when he became very famous. I'm not saying I didn't struggle after that. but it was never as hard as before that.
I mean, the thing that's weird is that, like, I was in San Francisco, right? So I did this when I was in San Francisco. This is several years before we moved. And so what I did a lot of voiceovers, and there was kind of like a .com boom that was happening. So there was a shit ton of work, and I worked all the time. And I made, I've really only recently, like in the last 2 years, gotten back to the income that I was making then.
Wow.
When I was doing voiceovers, like within a year or two after quitting the job, I was up to, you know, whatever, a bunch of money. And actually I'm not even adjusting for, like, my income last year was about what it was then, you know. What is that, 20 something years ago?
Right. So with inflation,
I'm still not back. I'm still not back to that kind of level.
You were killing it. Like at the beginning, you were killing it.
Well, because I was doing a lot of commercials, like I did on camera. I did probably 5 national on camera commercials a year, and, you know, hundreds of.
And there was no
commercial
cap
voiceovers,
then, right? There was no cap. I mean, you could do a national commercial and make. I think it's a little different now. No,
I'd make like 40 grand. I mean, I'd easily make like 40 grand on a commercial. Yeah. And so it was a lot of money. And, so when you say that, I didn't really have, that wasn't there wasn't really a financial break. I don't feel like I really had, there's like a lot of little breaks, you know, lots and lots and lots of them. But then of course when I came down here, you know, figuring they'll just say, oh, you know, what took you so long? Here's your television series or whatever, you know, and wasn't like that. And weird. Did your friend create that 70s show like as soon as you got here?
No. It was a long time later, but I think he ended up getting I'm going to have him on and we can talk. Okay. He and I'll ask him that. But
you had to qualify that. In other words, in case I thought I was going to be invited to the conversation, you're like, we'll have to have him on. I mean, him and I.
Dennis Miller.
You're not.
Now I'm remembering now. He got hired to write on the original Dennis Miller show out of Chicago.
Okay.
He wasn't in Chicago. You know, they did the whole show here, but then it was broadcast on WGN. So that was what the early mid '80s. You know, it was before Miller was on Saturday Night Live, I think. And so I think that was like just before, but I've heard other people is the point. I can't recall all the stories, but I've heard other people, you know, who threw caution to the wind and then ended up, you know, in your predicament.
Well, so I think maybe what you're asking is so David Mamet came and saw me in a play. I did a Horton Foote play in Los Angeles at the Law Studio. And Horton Foote actually came to the play. It was like a few months before he died.
Wow.
And nerve-wracking. Horton Foote came to the play, and David Mamet came to the play. So David Mamet and his wife, Rebecca, came to the play. And they stayed. It was sort of 2 one-acts, I think. Anyway, I was only in the first half. So they stayed for that, and they left because their kid was sick. But he wrote me a little note. He said, great job, on his business card, you know, and great job. And I thought, well, that was pretty cool. And then the next thing you know, he put me in a Funny or Die video, which was amazing. And
with the chicken suit?
No, this was, I interviewed Ariana Huffington, and cause we were talking about Picasso's book about Picasso co-wrote a book with Earl Scheib about painting. So just kind of
that's good.
Kind of funny joke a genius makes. But and so anyway, and Ariana Huffington was stunning. Like she didn't know her lines. Like she showed up and hadn't even looked at it, and we're in her house. We showed up at her house in Brentwood, which is like this. It could probably be a museum. I mean, it's like 100-year-old house, and you know, I went in the bathroom, and like the windows were still those old kind of lead, whatever window. I don't know if they're lead, but anyway, think I'm getting off track.
It's all right. It's all right. Go ahead.
So we did that. Just to end that story, like, so Dave says, come on, let's run it. And she doesn't know it. And he goes, well, maybe you guys should go over there and run it. We go over and like run it twice, and she knows my lines. Like after 2 times through, she had her lines and my lines. And absolutely brilliant woman. And made us baklava herself and served it to us. She was stunning. So that happened. And then fast forward, then he put me in this HBO movie with Al Pacino and Hellen Mirren and Dame Hellen Mirren. And who was a dame by then. This is about 2010 maybe, about the time my car was being made, and Jeffrey Tambor and Chiwetel Ejiofor and a bunch of great actors, so I had this like huge part in this movie based on fucking nothing, based on the fact that Dave liked me because I did a little short film with him. So, HBO was pissing their pants. Like, what do we do? And he just, he said he's not going to audition. It's his part and I'm giving it to him and whatever. So the point is that happened. And this is kind of maybe this is a good time to talk about, like, when you say, what was your big break? That's not a negative thing, but I have found that those sort of things are, like it's tangible in the one sense, Cat Williams has you writing for him. That's a tangible thing. David Mamet like befriends me. That's tangible. But, like we did this movie and I'm, whatever, kicking it with Al Pacino and Hellen Mirren. And I'm like, well, here we go. Fucking all right. After whatever it is, 8 years. All right. I'm ready to have a career now. That'll be like it was in San Francisco. And that just didn't happen, because it just isn't that simple, right? Because you can't.
It's just one gig,
Yeah, it's just one gig. That's exactly right. And so it's funny. I used to see. I don't know where to look. Like if I'm looking there, does that look like I'm looking at you?
You're doing fine. You look like you're looking right at me.
I realize I'm like looking at me. What does that say?
Can you? Oh, like, well, we're both looking at each other, sort of. I think it's working out, John. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
I wish I could be a better director, Oh,
but you're doing great. So that whole idea, there's definitely a in this town, there's kind of it's like there's sort of alternate universes or something, right? There's the making it universe is just like right there, like you can touch it, like you're at a party and all these people are at the party, or you're at the Chateau Marmont and blah blah blah, and you have a tuxedo on now and blah, da, 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 da. Right. So these things are like right there and you're just touching them, and then and
then you go home
pay your bills. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your car's 10 years old and whatever. Right. And so I think what I'm saying is that somewhere in there, not right away, but somewhere things sort of changed. It's going to sound so goofy, but things started changing when I started thinking of myself as an artist. And sort of, because when I was in San Francisco was an amazing place to come up, because there was an atmosphere where you could be a stand-up comedian and you could just go to any of like 10 places. You've probably played San Francisco, right? So have you not?
A little bit, but mostly Oakland and the Bay Area outside of San Francisco.
Oh, right.
Not really. No, I don't really. They don't. That's not a market that really brings me. But
well, but as there were basically 2 clubs. There was Cobb's and Punchline,
right?
And so there was 2 clubs that you could go to. I was at the Punchline once, but doing a sketch show, just to be clear. And by the way, I used to run. My best friend was a stand-up comedian, and I used to run with the comedians. And I remember him one day saying to me, because like, why am I not doing stand-up, right? Like, I mean, like Patton Oswalt was coming up then, and Carlos Ellis Rocky, and just like we had like a lot of people that who they are were sort of coming up when I was coming up, as an improviser, an actor. And I remember my buddy Joseph, rest in peace, one of the just literally the funniest guy I've ever met, said, I feel like you do acting because it's easier. And over the time being like, whatever, man, fuck you. Dude, he was so right. He was so right.
Yeah,
like,
you were also incredibly smart and intuitive to not get into stand-up comedy.
But I got to tell you, you can't, if a person is a stand-up, they immediately have my respect. I have seen so many terrible stand-ups because, like I said, I used to run with these guys. We'd be up at 6 a.m. and having not gone to bed at the diner or whatever, it's still goofing around. And so, kind of back to my point, San Francisco had just like a plethora of open mics that you could just show up and just put your name up, and there was no politics, and you didn't have to know the guy and whatever. You'd be like, I think whatever, Jim's got a one over at the cafe on, at the end of the end line, there's a whatever, a coffee shop, and we could go over there. Okay, let's go over there. And those guys would just do sets. And if you were a improviser, you could just have a stupid improv show at these many theaters, or like I wrote some shows, and it was like, we had the Marsh, and we had like just a bunch of different places. The point is, you could do it for the sake of doing it because there wasn't the specter of Hollywood looming over. I'm guessing that's what was missing. All I know is that, at the time, I didn't think of it that way at all. I thought of it like, I'm in this great place where I'm doing plays, and I'm doing, sketch comedy, and I'm doing improv shows, and I'm learning about improv, and my buddies are all stand-ups, and so I'm going to, loads and loads of stand-up, and it just seemed like like fertile, supportive community for artists to be artists. And I'm not even talking about all the musicians and, painters and other, performance artists, and just all the, it's just a really good place to be an artist and and you could do it for the sake of doing it. And you could like get a burrito for $3 and eat half of it in the morning and half of it for lunch. And it was just sustainable to be an artist there. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah. So I think I was really, really fortunate to come up in that atmosphere, because I don't know if I have what it takes if I had to come up here in Hollywood.
Because it becomes a hustle. It becomes less of an art, more of a hustle.
Yes, because a hustle very quickly.
What it sounds like you're saying is you went back to being able to consider yourself an artist and less of a hustler. I think I had just enough in me to not forget that, because you get here and the hustle starts right away, right? Like get off the plane and you're hustling, or you're dead. And so, but I think that I, at a certain point, started that hustle and sort of had that kind of insight, like, oh no. Like, I think maybe it was the fact that it's Mamet, it's all Mamet. It's a guy like that who saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And having that guy see that in me and support that. It gave you confidence, John.
It gave me confidence, and maybe even more so like an insight, like, oh, maybe I'm an artist because I'm not going to fool him. I'm not going to put anything past that guy. So I don't know. I think that when I started, it also made it easier. It also, I don't know how anything works. So I'm starting to feel like I know how things work, and I don't. But I just do know that there was a kind of a shift where I was like, I remember those feelings of the movie, the Phil Spector movie came out, and I was like, here we go. And then it didn't, I'm at the premiere in New York, and here we go. And it didn't happen. And I think I was in a place where I could have just gone like, what the fuck? Or I could have been like, what's next, And
you were like, what's next? What's
next? Yeah. And from there it's, Barry was just like, I was going to tell you, I used to see like actors, like sort of established actors, talk about how lucky they are. And I used to be like, fuck you. What do you mean lucky? You work really hard. You're talented and you work really hard. Luck. And now I'm like, oh yeah, yep. I get it. Yep, you are lucky. You are very lucky.
I, as a stand-up comic, was an actor on stage just before I became a stand-up. I did some stage acting and little short films, and but I always was terrified of being an actor because I was terrified of standing with a headshot in my hand without, like, the comedy gave me power, the stand-up gave me power, and it gave me something I could pump, I could, you know, like a club, I could not only could I beat people over the head with it, but and to no success, but I could also express my rage and hostility and dissatisfaction through the stand-up. So there was a functioning use for it. I was terrified. I felt for actors who I knew who couldn't do that because they were interpreting other people's work, or I needed that stand-up, like emotionally, I needed the art, you know, to keep myself from going mad, I think.
Yeah, you definitely chose the more difficult thing. I mean, the you know, to me, I have no higher reverence than for. I was going to tell you I saw so many shitty stand-ups, and I respected every single one of them, 100% of them. It was like I can remember this young woman, little tiny woman, in some little weird space that was like in the basement of some other theater or whatever, and there was probably 30 of us in there, and she got up there, and her jokes were terrible, and she just kept going. She didn't flinch. She would smile, and then she would tell her next joke. And I remember just being like in awe of that. I was like, God bless her. Like that's the fierceness of that.
Right.
Just like, I am going to go through, this is not going to be my night. And maybe she's used to that. I cannot imagine that she had ever really killed it, this girl, because her jokes were so like pedestrian and
but it's the way that it didn't phase her was what
the way that it did not phase her. It was powerful. And I remember exactly what she looks like. I wish I could remember her name. I think Matt Walsh was hosting. Isn't stand up Matt Walsh? Anyway, is it Matt Walsh?
The name sounds familiar.
Anyway,
I don't know for sure.
But I remember that night because I remember that woman, and I'm pretty sure she inspired me in that moment. And you know, to my larger point, I'm inspired by every stand-up that I see. I mean, people, you know, and you know, I'm sitting in the back of the room with the stand-ups, and you know, and they're being snotty sometimes or whatever. And I just remember thinking, anybody that can go up there and do that, I tip my hat to him.
Well, this was a perfect segue to explain that, John, the way you and I met was at our synagogue, or you know, I haven't been to the synagogue in a while, but I was
gonna talk to you about that, Stephen. You know, we've been asking where you've been, and actually, your mother called, and she.
And you haven't been there either, so don't bullshit.
I haven't. But your mother still called for some reason. It's weird, actually. She kind of calls a lot.
There's something about me that makes people think my mother's contacting various people. There's some Benjamin Braddock thing that I have going on, that no matter how much of an edge I get or how much attitude I get, I can't shake this. Like people telling me that I should sell plastics.
No, you do have you have an everyman look and an everyman vibe about you, and I think, if I may be so bold as to say, I think that's a value to you and to your work. I think that allows you to say a lot of the crazy shit that you say, because we accept you as a, you know what I mean? You're not like Cat's wacky, you know? And so, you know what I mean? He's like a fucking battery moving around the stage, you know? And so like, you know, lightning is firing off him. You don't even know what the hell's going on. But you know, you're more, you look like you should be in plastics. Exactly.
Right.
Which I think gives you more leeway. I think Cat's got a bigger, you know, more to overcome, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. I'm also not as naturally funny as Kat, but 99% of the population are.
No, I was going to say that. Yeah, not even close. It's
No, not even
you're not
close.
even funny.
I'm not even trying. Why that would be a.
I actually kind of thought that was
errand.
that was your comedy. That was your bit, was to be not funny. I thought that's what you were doing. It was like a kind of a not funny, like a commentary on.
It is, John. It is. I think you nailed it. You hit the nail on the head. So going to your love and reverence for comedians. So this is how I met our mutual, very famous friends, was through you, because you said, this is Steven. He's a real stand-up comedian. I don't know if you remember this, but this was like a huge, major thing in my life, is to become friends with these brilliant, famous people who you don't even remember this probably, but you introduced me to Rebecca and Dave, and then they would come to
They came to your show.
They came a couple times, yeah.
Yeah. They came and saw you.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That says something, right?
Pretty amazing. They came twice. That's actually what says. Like, they came once and then they came again. So
it's that second one that really is the badge of honor.
Like, you know it's good if it happened again. You know what
Look,
I mean?
we've done our duty. Okay, we went and saw that knucklehead from the shul, and then if after that they're like, hey, let's go back and see Steven, that's a badge of honor. That's true. Yeah. That's a very good point.
Dave actually interacted with me. We had a little interaction.
During the show?
Yes. He
is such a drama queen, isn't he? He's so funny. It was
great. He'd been planning it since the first one.
He'd been planning his improvisation?
He'd been planning I do an audience participation thing. But he'd been lying in wait.
Aww.
Yeah.
So, he was thinking about you and planning something for your show. That's
that was amazing.
Sweet.
It was very cool.
Very sweet.
Yeah. So anyway,
that's pretty cool.
It's pretty neat. And all that happened because my friend, John Pirruccello, who really appreciates stand-up comedians. Yeah. So you may not remember that, but that actually is a perfect moment to stick that in, that it's not just all talk. This guy's the real deal when he says he loves and appreciates comedians. I can't watch comedians like that. I get physically ill.
I know.
And I would be watching that lady tell her jokes, and maybe later on I would appreciate it, but in the moment I would feel like anxiety, because I know that I have PTSD from knowing that horrible, that apocalypse now feeling.
So I would think that by this point that you will have had the past participle gerund of the whatever the passato remoto in Italian. You would have made peace, or not made peace, made not friends, but like bombing would be like just a part of it, right? I mean, I'm not saying, I love bombing, but I'm just saying I would think that it's a, just like, I don't know, like I've when I was doing, I won't tell the whole story about it, but I'm doing Twin Peaks, and it was like one of my first, whatever. Point is, I had to talk about blowing a .20. I had arrested a guy, and he had blown a point. I can't even say it now.
Right, you were bragging about taking a guy in who blew below the limit.
Yeah, and I couldn't say it. I kept saying a 2.0, and I would say it again. And Robert Forster is right. That's who I'm talking to. And David Lynch is like over there in the corner, and we're in this room, and Jody, oh my God, what's her last name? Anyway, she plays Maggie, the switchboard operator. Anyway, she was a Seattle local actor, and I over and over again, like probably 4 times,
you flubbed it.
He would come in, the two of them would talk, so it wasn't even like the beginning of the scene. When I would fuck it up, we had to go back, and Bob Forster had to go back down the hallway and come back up again. And then I could tell by the 4th time, he'd be like, like he'd say his line, like, you know, if I can get it right this time. He didn't. I'm just kidding. But in fact, he did the opposite of that. But the point is, at a certain point, I just walked out in the center of the room, and I looked over at Lynch and I was just like, what the fuck? You know? And I wonder if early me would have been able to have any, you know, and again, to your point, I was suffering. I was definitely suffering. This was not a happy moment for me, but it wasn't completely unfamiliar, and it wasn't, and I had been doing it long enough to process that, at least intellectually, this is a part of the deal. Like, this happens. I don't like it, but it happens.
Right, but it's with stand-up. First of all, it's different for everybody. Like a Louis C.K. seems to be someone who overcame that, who talks about learning to enjoy bombing. I never learned to enjoy bombing, or to be in it. There are times where I have not given a fuck enough, where I've learned to maintain my critical thinking ability during bombing. That's the closest I come, where I'll power through it or I'll rage through it or something. But no, man, I have total war shell shock when it comes to that. I'll tell you a quick story. I was headlining a weekend in a place called Cocoa Beach, Florida, which is like a little surf community on the Atlantic coast of Florida. And the comedy club was in the resort. So they put us in a little hotel room in the resort. And then on Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, we would leave our little room and walk to the show. And the Thursday night, it was my first night headlining a show in 4 or 5 months, meaning I've been doing these 15-minute sets in LA, John, and I've got to do 45 minutes in Cocoa Beach. And I hadn't done 45 minutes in a long time. And I know every time I kick off a tour, there's going to be a weird show where the plane doesn't quite get off the tarmac. You know, those old newsreel footages of the plane not quite, you know, it kind of takes flight, but then it lands, it takes flight again. That's me, you know, trying to do 45 minutes. So I know there's always a show like that. But I hope that it's not going to be. Like, I hope I'm going to avoid it, which sometimes I do. But on this Thursday night, I did not. And it was horrible. And the owner of the club was there. And she said, I came off, I didn't do my full 45 minutes even. I got off at like 37. I got off at 37 minutes. And she said,
now, did you just jump to your closer? Is that what you did? Or did you just get done like?
You're very intuitive. I did the closer way too early because I wasn't getting the traction.
You're like, I need something right now, man. I fucking need it. Come on, I need it. Give it to me.
I have a few closers, but you know, I whatever I did, it was bad. And the audience didn't hate it. It wasn't that my set was that bad. It's that the crowd, when you're a headliner like that, and they're buying food and drinks, and they want the show to end on a high, you know, like a boom. You know, they don't want the comedian to be crying and
pleading with them to give him a break. That's not what you want to see.
There were definitely a few moments like that. There were definitely a few. There were many factors that went into this. Also, the club.
What did she say? Wait, I want to know what she said. You went up after 37 minutes, and what did she say?
She said, "You did not." She was a German lady. She said, "You did not do your full 45 minutes. That was 37." I said, "Are you sure?" I knew I wasn't up there for 45 minutes. I was just totally pretending like I didn't know. But
I'm only going to pay you 87% of your pay.
Well, also, here's another, wrinkle to think. Before the show even began, I was notified the club likes it to be a clean set. You know? And I am not in any bio or any kind of how they booked me. I don't know, because I've never pretended to be a clean comic. I'm not saying I'm filthy, but my set is not. Even if my set's clean, it bothers people. It rubs people the wrong way. So I did the set. I was trying to restrain myself a little bit to fit the guidelines, and I hadn't been in that headlining position in a while. Man, that night I didn't sleep a lot. And the next day I thought, man, if I have one more show like this, that's it. You know, they're not going to want me. The feature had a better set on the Thursday night than I did, the middle act. So on Friday, I went, fuck it. I don't care. I'm not being clean. I'm going to do what I do. And if they don't like it, fuck them. But this is the only place I can maneuver from a position of power, and now this is the only way I can do this. So I went on and I just went balls to the wall, and it was great. The rest of the weekend was great. But I always remember that because it was the PTSD of, it was like, you know, thinking you've got the COVID and you're going to die. I mean, it was that kind of horrible. So no, after 24 years, I'm not at peace.
I don't know if it's I like the closest thing I can, like off the top of my head, we were doing a sketch show, and the woman, I can't remember her name, stand up, San Francisco. And the sketch just basically involved us taking turns, you know, like we're speaking out to the audience and going, and then if you come, you know, whatever, it's going to be some sales pitch or something, you know, come in later on this afternoon and get 20% off, 20% off. Did you say, you know, so it's sort of like it was a back and forth was required, and it was moving, and it got to me, and I just went, boo. I just went completely blank. And I was like, and it was so profound that in that moment, I mean, this probably took a millisecond, but it seemed like 10 minutes to me. In my head, I was like, wow, you have no idea what your next line is. Look at them. They probably think this is part of the sketch where I stop.
For a few moments.
Look at them. They're like looking at me. This is what's going on in my head. And then at a certain point, I was like, I looked over at her and she's going, and then I was like, oh, right. Yeah. I should probably try to think about what my next line is. Okay, let's see. You said this. You said, oh, here. And then I went back into it. But it was like this. I was fascinated by the alternate universe of, and then I have, this reminds me of another story about the play I just did. Profound. But that, unfortunately, like that also happened. That same thing happened to me at a general audition, like where you go and you audition some monologue for all the theater owners in town, and so it's like the most powerful people who could possibly hire you for play are all there.
There's a lot.
Yeah, they're all there. There's no bigger situation, and it's not like auditioning for one play. It's like auditioning for hundreds of plays at once. And so same thing happened. Like I had my 2 minutes, ba-da-ba-da-bum. I get about midway through it, and then I was like, boom, totally up. And the same thing where I'm like looking around the room going, my point being, there's something, well, you can't like make that happen. Like you can't be in that headspace on purpose. So it's this thing that happens sometimes. And when it happens, I may be too much. I may be too fascinated by it because probably I'm not recovering fast enough because I'm like, whoa, it's that again. Holy shit. It's like everything slows down.
Tunnel? Is there a tunnel kind of thing?
It's not a tunnel. It's more like an acid trip or something. It's like everything becomes completely sharp and clear because it's like fight or flight or something. Like all of my neurons go, you need your wits about you right now. And so it's like this vibration where everything is completely clear and quiet. It's very quiet. It's about as quiet as it ever gets. And like all the voices in my head, except that one, are quiet. You know, there's just that one voice left.
Yeah. This would be a very pleasant experience if you didn't have to perform and say things.
Well, I wonder if I'm just like a sociopath where like in that moment, like, I don't give a fuck about this. You know, it's like, I'm enjoying this moment. This is about my enjoyment, right? But I don't know. Yeah.
I never enjoyed those moments, John.
I can't say that I enjoy is a big word in this sense. It's fascinating to me. It's like, oh, it's this again. This thing that just like in improv, maybe that's where it comes from. Like in improv, you can't mess up on purpose. So the only real thing that's ever going to happen in improv is a mistake. So that's why improvisers love mistakes. A mistake is our favorite thing in the whole world because it's like a fire in the tundra. Like all these other mechanical things are happening. Oh, I should do this. Oh, I need to do the arc of the bud and that character, that guy. Let's bring that guy back. Blah, 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 blah. It's this intellectual thing. And then a mistake happens and you're like, oh, you like light up because it's real and it's something to play with. It's like this real thing. It's life. It's
raw
like a
material.
Yeah, it's raw material and it's unintended. And so maybe that's why it's fascinating to me. I don't know.
What happened in the play? You mentioned that there was something in the play. So
I know, and it's one of those things where it probably just will not translate, but just take my word for it. That along those lines, when one is acting in a play, like acting at all, but in a play, it gets extended out, right? Because there's no breaks. You can't cut or whatever, right? So it's sort of a longer periods of time, like 8 minutes in this case, right? Is that scene. So you're not going to get out of it for however many minutes are left in that scene. And so there's a certain amount of, there's the tether that you're trying to hold on to, which is what's my blocking, what's my line, what's my next line, what is she going to say, what am I going to say to that? So there's the structural tether that you're holding on to, but you're trying to kind of let the rope out so that you can be present in the moment and you can be reacting to what is happening.
It's not stilted and rehearsed.
I guess that's what it would look like. Yeah. So, but I mean, just in terms of what I'm trying to accomplish is what's fun for me is if, again, something unexpected happens, right? So I'm responding to, she may not turn her head the same way, or sometimes she might just smile a little bit like she didn't do the last time. And little tiny things like that. This is Rebecca Pidgeon, because you saw the play. Right. And so little subtle things, or she might be a little louder at one point, and so anyway, all of these things are exciting to me because they're new, right? And so there was a moment where I was sitting there at that table, right? And I'm on the stage left, so I'm over closer to the wall on the table. She's crossing up stage in front of me, and everything went fucking silent. Like the voices in my head stopped. What's your next blocking stopped. All of those voices stopped. All of my crazy fucking voices stopped. And it got just incredibly silent. It's like, and I even looked out at the audience, and they were all silently staring at us, as they should be. Right. But somehow it was profound to me. And then I looked back at Rebecca again, and everything, like there was it became like completely ordinary, like the heightened ordinary, which doesn't really jibe with the production that it takes to do it, right? To get to that point is anything but ordinary. But in that moment, everything stopped and it became completely silent. It was profound. It was profound to me. And I looked at her, and then, just as has happened in the past, I was like, "Oh, next you're going to be moving upstage. You better come back now." And then it kind of came back, and it's not like night and day. It's not like it goes back to, not fun anymore. It's just that it sort of jumped up to this. It's almost like, did you see that movie? Was it with Jodie Foster where she gets in a space thing and they drop it and it falls down through?
Yes, I remember that. Contact,
yeah. And like Matthew McConaughey, was he the guy that was like completely miscast as the scientist or something like that?
He might have. I don't remember, possibly.
But it was like that. It was like the ball dropped, and in that, to her it was, a fraction of to her it was like a week or whatever, right? And to everybody outside watching the ball dropped, it was a fraction of a second. It was like that sort of
It's that,
I'm
it's
babbling.
like you're suspended in time, kind of there.
Yeah, suspended. Very
and
good.
You dig it, and you kind of dig it. You enjoy it.
It was powerful because it was almost like otherworldly. It was almost like I'm glimpsing in to something from another place, or
There's
from
some frequency change. Some frequency change.
Absolutely, a frequency change. You're exactly right. That's very well put. And now, and once again, so now back into the breach. You know, you can't go looking for that because you can't find it. You can't find it if you go looking for it. You know, as much as it'd be like, you know, like a heroin addict or something like that was like, okay, but you just never know when the heroin's going to show up. Like every once in a while, the door will open and someone will throw it in, but you don't know when that's going to be. Good luck. You go ahead and shoot up, but it might be months before, years before you get more. So
that would be one unhinged heroin addict, that's for sure.
Well, I think I'm describing myself now as what's happening.
It sounds like beautiful. It sounds really beautiful. I get panic attacks in moments like that. I don't deal well with. I'm not saying every time. Sometimes I have, but I think the thing in the mechanism in my mind is, if I don't succeed in this moment, then they'll never let me do this again.
I think I probably have that, and I think that I've been doing it so long that I also have this other voice that I've had to develop, that I've heard enough from that guy that says, look, it works out one way or the other. You know, just remember that. Like in that moment, that's probably my first reaction. And then he's like, dude, what are you going to do? There's no, like I've done it wrong enough to know that I'm not going to fix it by doing anything other than calming down and centering myself and trying to gain my bearings. There's nothing else that's going to, if I have any chance at all, and even that might not work, but if I have any chance at all, it's going to be that sort of a process and not panic.
I think if the only thing I could say, the only progress I might have made, and I envy your tranquility in those moments. The only progress I have made is the voice will say to me, "Don't worry, this is the best you can do. It wasn't going to go well anyway. You're working with what you have to work with. You're going to do the best you can, and whatever happens, happens."
Not everybody can be Cat Williams.
Not everybody can be. Cat Williams went through a lot of torment, trying to make that.
Of course he did.
Trying to make that thing work. And funny story about him, because I recorded a episode with Corey Mosley, which I'll send to you when we put it out. But Cat Williams and that whole crew, the guy who discovered him, the guy who gave him his place to perform, no one would let him on stage because he wasn't in the cliques, in the comedy club cliques, and also because he would go a long time. He wouldn't get off stage. He would run the light, and you're not supposed to do that. So the guy who gave him his Cat House Live at Hollywood Park Casino in the late 90s, which was his sort of launching pad, he could go on after, he would do a show, he would bring up comics, he would host the show, and then when the show would end, Cat would go on for 2-3 hours.
Nice.
People would stay on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and he needed that. He needed that playtime to be able to learn to do what he learned to do. No one would let him do that. I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but
Chappelle does that too, I think, right?
He does that, but he is established and successful.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So Cat was not, the fact that he had this playground where he could do whatever he wanted, and being an unknown guy in Inglewood, and unlike Chappelle, who's, he could stand on stage for 7 hours at the Laugh Factory, and people are like, well, that's a famous person we've heard of, So.
Wow. Okay. He's also potentially one of the 5 greatest stand-up comedians that's ever lived. I mean, in my opinion.
He is great. He is great. But, I'm sure in that 6 hours, there are,
oh yeah,
moments where he doesn't know what the fuck, and it might not be funny and people might not be laughing, but
oh dude, I was doing stand up at the Improv, and Chris Rock showed up, and when Chris Rock shows up,
everyone gets bumped.
Everybody gets bumped, right? And I was like, awesome, because I'm not any good at this anyway, and this is going to be better for all of us if Chris goes up. And so he came up with he had a yellow legal pad, and he threw it down on the piano, and he had like a hat on, like this. And he would like pick up the pad and he'd look at it and he'd kind of pace back and forth and go, okay, so, and like Chris would come out from underneath that hat and he would be there popping Oprah, whatever. And then recede back in. Okay. It was like, and this is well into Chris's fame and fortune. I mean, he was, this is, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago or something when I first got here. And I don't know. I just thought that was kind of magical to watch, kind of like you say, like it's like, if Chappelle doesn't hit everything, we don't really see that when we see Chappelle's Hour, because we see a refined piece of, a masterpiece that has been refined, fine-tuned.
Well, you might actually, with Chappelle so brilliant, you might actually be watching, people may be watching experimentation they don't know is experimentation.
Yeah.
So great, and he's in front of his crowd,
Yeah.
And that's Carlin talked about, George Carlin, probably one of my favorite, biggest influence on me as a teenager anyway. In interviews later on, he talked about how it wasn't really until the early 90s that he got his crowd was all there and they knew his voice. That's and great. He was hitting his stride with expressing himself, and he was going from telling jokes to doing essays, to delivering essays and monologues, basically. Uh-huh. And but he mentioned a couple of concerts that he did, and I remember this was the concert that I saw as a teenager.
Oh, that's great.
And I would have never known this was just all the stars aligning for George Carlin. I just assumed it was always that way for George Carlin because he's brilliant, and who wouldn't think he's brilliant, right? But it was a time and place where it was just right for him.
Well, and his stuff was, I've heard him say his stuff was, written out, and he's saying it verbatim, like what he's written. And that guy did an hour every year, like pretty much every year of his life, he had a new hour. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, I never saw him do stand up, but I saw him on a book tour when he did Napalm and Silly Putty, and saw him interviewed. And this guy, I don't even remember his name. Some friend of mine just like got me completely stoned before we went in there, and watched. There was something sort of. I wasn't, super stoned, as I said, but like prepared, like, oh shit, that's George Carlin sitting there. My reverence for George Carlin. It's like he was just, for a second, he was just a guy talking about his book, and then I was like, that's fucking
holy
George
shit,
Carlin.
George Carlin.
Holy shit, that's George Carlin. Did you ever hear Gary Shandling talk about that George Carlin was the reason that he had the confidence to get into stand-up?
No.
Oh yeah, he Gary Shandling's an interesting cat, but he was already like an engineer. He had finished whatever his master's. He was like working in as a whatever engineer or something, some kind of smart job, and he didn't like it and said, and it's a longer conversation where he talks about this is kind of what he would do in his life forever, was everything would hit a certain point and he would be like, okay, I'm done with that. What's the next scary thing? He was like a Buddhist, and Shandling is like a brilliant guy. But I have his table in my kitchen. I have Gary Shandling's table.
Swap meet?
Nope. A friend of Julie's, my girlfriend Julie's, Dan Casella, is a stand-up and worked in a group with her. You've seen Fake Radio. Haven't you seen Julie do Fake Radio? Where they go up and do old radio shows and improvise. And anyway, he like one day, he knew that I love Gary Shandling, and he's like, hey, we're moving. you want Gary Shandling's table? And I was like, fuck yeah. I got my truck, and I like headed over there and put this big giant table that's way too big for anything in my house, but it's there.
It's fucking Gary Shandling's
It's fucking Gary Shandling's table. It's my prized possession. I guess the coffee table right there that my dead father made is probably.
Oh, do you want to get into that now? I mean, we are.
Do you mind?
Let's talk about it. Let's
so anyway,
our fathers were in Vietnam. One of them came out alive, and one of them did not. My dad did come back.
You did? Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. It's much better that way. I wouldn't trade with you because then you'd have my thing. But I'm glad that yours. Should I finish the Gary Shandling story or?
You know what? It's the fork in the road as an improviser. If you want to go with
I know
dead Vietnam dad, or
in reverence to Carlin, because this was amazing to me, and then we can get back to my dead dad. We can talk about how he died and like how painful it must have been and all that. But so he was in Arizona. You know, Shandling grew up in Tucson. You probably knew that. And and Carlin was going to be playing up in Phoenix. So he got in his car and drove up to Phoenix and met Carlin after the show and said, I don't know, he was saying like, where I had the balls to do this, I have no idea. And he said, hey, you know, I wrote a bunch of jokes. And Carlin said, well, I write all my own stuff. And Gary said, well, I was just hoping you'd take a look at it and, you know, see what you think. And Carlin said, well, I can't do it right now, but why don't you give it to me? And if you come back tomorrow, I'll, come find me. So he does. He comes back. Carlin had read all of it. And he said, you're green, but I can tell you're funny. And if you wanted to do this, I think you could do this. And that's all Shandling needed to hear. Kind of like Mamet saying to me, I think you can do this up on this level with these people, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I listen completely. I think half of talent is confidence, is having confidence and,
I'm fucked then.
Believing you can actually do it, because I was ready to quit around the age, like late 20s. I was like, it was very rough and I was not doing well. And this guy discovered me. I admired, and, obviously it helped me financially, but it also made me feel like I wasn't a bench player anymore, like I was a starter.
Yeah. I think that, that sort of frame of mind has come to me just through evidence. I don't feel like I wouldn't call myself a confident person. I probably am, relatively speaking. I probably have I'm in the top 50 percentile or whatever, but it's more like I do know that I have a compulsion to do as well as I can in any situation, and it's just almost an obsession to it may be competitive, like to not be taken down by any given circumstances or whatever. Like I will do the absolute best I can to, and what I've learned is that it's that comes my ability to do that. This is maybe back to what we were talking about before. My ability to do that, I've learned from doing it wrong, is that that's only going to happen if I'm calm, if I can relax, if I can. So it's not that I'm confident. It's a technical thing that I have this tool that I've developed where I know the bad outcome, and my only chance at a good outcome, I still may not get it, but my only chance at it is to be deeper in the moment, to calm myself down, and then I'll have more of my wits about me, because I only have what I have, and if I want access to as much of it as I can have access to, I'm going to have to take a breath. So it's funny because you say confidence and I go, I don't think I have that. I don't think that's the thing. I almost feel like confidence is I almost have a negative connotation of it, you know?
In this time, I mean, maybe the word does. I don't know that there's a better word to describe it for me. You know, it is
addiction, obsession, mental illness.
Mental illness, for sure. That's mental illness, yeah. But the mental illness was there when I was not good at it as well. So there had to be some change.
See, so now, but now you channel that.
Somebody fed my delusion. That's what it was.
That's exactly right.
I was in the cuckoo's nest, and someone told me, yeah, the
people would like to hear about this.
Pink bear you're talking about is real. I see it too. And that guy got me. Yeah, that's what happened, man.
And that man was Jack Nicholson. That was before.
Just put it in the basket, Chief. Just put it in.
Right. Just put it in the basket, Chief. Did you ever read that book by Kesey?
Yeah, totally different.
Totally different. But Murphy's a completely different guy. He's like a redheaded Irish guy, and he's like
Rabbi Finley.
Yeah, huh? He's Rabbi Finley, exactly. Rabbi Mordecai Finley. I like just saying that to people. That blows their mind. I just like being able to say I have a rabbi. You know, I just love that.
Very LA of you, John.
Oh, yeah. My rabbi. I just say it and I look for ways to get it into conversations like right now. Yeah.
Pepitone makes fun of me because I talk about it on the podcast a lot.
Who does?
Yeah, he totally messes with me.
Who messes with you?
Oh, Pepitone, Eddie Pepitone.
Oh, Ed Pepitone. Yeah.
We do our podcast together, so I will mention that. I will, you know, because it's become part of my my mind. You know.
Is he a WAP too? Pepitone?
He's an Italian Jew, just like me.
Oh, he's just like you. Okay, all right.
Yeah, mother's Jewish, father's Italian.
Yeah, he's very funny.
But he's not. You know, he's a meditating spiritualist type of dude. But he, you know, he gives me my leeway. But I will mention Finley's because it's hard not to because it's such brilliant stuff. You know, it's hard not to bring it up in conversation, as like we're doing now.
Well, you and I, they've all gone away now, Stephen. The audiences, they've all tuned out. Nobody's listening. It's just you and me talking about what we know.
They were never listening to begin with. My audience is like 7 old Jewish women who are calling me to ask me if everything's okay. And, you know, it is.
Now, your mother died?
No, my mother's alive. Thank God.
Thank God. Okay. Because now all of a sudden I realized I was saying all that stuff about your mom and she called me and stuff early on. And then I was like,
no,
wait a minute.
She's calling you. She's calling you. You know what? Here's a fucked up story
home?
I'll share with you real quick. I was really broke, and I think in the early 2000s I moved out here. I was really fucking broke, and I ended up living in my car. But even before that, I was hopping around on people's couches, and it was a rough time. And my poor mother, you know, she was trying to get a hold of me. No cell phone back then.
Oh, no.
So cell phones weren't as common in the early 2000s, you know, and if you had one, you were paying like an $80 or $100 a month phone, you know. So I didn't have a cell phone, and my mother, and I remember I had told my mother the name of this guy who was helping me get work. He was helping me get auditions, like an agent, but I wasn't signed with him. Do you know my mother fucking looked this guy up and found his office number and called him to ask him if I was okay, and needless to say, that guy, he was like, please don't, you know, tell your mother can't be calling here.
Oh, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. What a dick.
He was a dick, but I mean,
what a fucking dick. That's all I need to hear. You don't have to tell me.
Side of show business, you know.
He's no, but listen, man, I have an agent now that absolutely, if my mother called him, he would be flattered. And he would say that I'm, you know, a pain in the ass and whatever, and need to work more. Yeah, that, you know, that's another misconception too, because I have found the sort of larger whatever you want to call it, wherever I've gotten to at this point, you know, at the point where I'm working with David Mamet and David Lynch and Al Pacino and whatever, up there where I'm interacting with that plane, that stratosphere, of the arts. People are incredibly generous and kind. They're thoughtful, kind. I think that assholes only kind of make it up
To the middle.
that straight, once in a while, whatever, somebody pops through for whatever reason. But most of them really, they have a ceiling. They kind of really only make, because at a certain point, like Jack Nicholson's going to put up with your bullshit if you're some dick, I mean, he's just going to be like, fuck you, and go work with someone that's not a dick.
Right.
But it's funny. You something you said reminded me of something that I wanted to say, so that I'd be talking. Is that when you talk about living in your car and I don't know what you want to call that, but that's not confidence. That's not fucking confidence when you're living in your car. That is single-mindedness. That is I have said before, I feel afflicted by acting. I feel that it's an affliction. It's like a virus or a disease that I have. And I don't have a choice. Like, what the fuck else in the world would have you sleeping in your car? Sleeping in your car with no money.
Well, I mean, I can tell you.
Are you going to do that so that you can live out your dream to be an ice cream salesman? I mean, I don't know that you would. Even a lawyer. I don't think even fucking lawyers do that, or doctors. I don't think those
people who like early
guys do that.
Early immigrants lived. They just wanted to have families and shit, and they lived not rough. I don't know, man. I was getting funny. That's why I did it.
Well, they were single-minded.
I was getting funny, and I was seeing I could actually be good and I could be funny. Before that, I was definitely faking it. And so when I ended up in those black clubs, I realized I could be really funny. And that's when I went, well, I can't hold a job because I'm up till 4 a.m. doing these comedy shows. And
once you succeed in front of those audiences, you can't unknow that.
You can't unknow that. You can't unknow that. That's the best way I've ever heard it put, John. You can't unknow that. That's right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and people think you're important. When you have I think a lot of times I forget what my life was in working jobs in my early 20s and being in college. Nobody cared anything about me. They didn't want to know about me. The women didn't want to sleep with me. And when you're doing stand-up, you don't have any money, but people suddenly are curious about you. They want to know about you. And women occasionally want to sleep with you. People give you free weed. That was another big thing. I would get a lot of free weed, and I never had to, I don't think I ever in my life after the age of 25 paid for marijuana because it was always there.
Fierce.
Absolutely. So, all of those things, I forget those very simple things of just feeling that love and want and feeling, valued. And, no, you don't want to show up at a job. And there's a mental illness and insanity too.
Because that will always be there. Like you start going through the motion, then you're really going to be faking it, because then you're going to be like showing up and be like, sure, I can answer the phone. No, yeah, I got a couple of ties. Of course I do. Sure. And you're like showing up that thing in the back of your head, that fucking set that you did in that club where they fucking were laughing, and that is buzzing there like tinnitus. Like constantly in your head.
As you were driving the cab? Let's go to this real quick. As you were driving the cab, was this happening? Was the buzzing? Was the tinnitus there?
I feel like it felt more. It didn't feel as well. That's a great question, because I definitely felt. So it was so much fun. Like when I was driving the cab and I had when I first got to San Francisco and I lived in a room, looking back on it, I think it was a closet because it was so small. It was a foam pad like this thick, and there was like a foot on one side where
You're
I had
a big guy, John. You're about 6'5", aren't you?
I'm telling you, I think looking back on it that this was a walk-in closet that this person
had. Much
had.
easier for a small man. I'm 5'5" to live that way. I'm just pointing that out.
Measured myself. I'm 6'3.5", and so when and like I said before, like I'd buy a burrito, it would be $3. I would eat half of it for one meal, half for the other. But I was making $5 an hour when I first got there, working at a coffee shop. And so I could save up to take these voiceover classes. But I had never, like once I said, oh, I'm going to go do that. Like I saw this, voiceover teacher come on a local talk show and teach people from the audience, like put a copy stand in front of them and they would read stuff. And I was sitting there on the couch going, that's a fucking job. What? Well, I could do that. And so put everything in my car, went to San Francisco. The point is, once I did that, once I put everything in my car and headed to San Francisco, I was completely single-minded. And I didn't have a wife and I didn't have kids. And I was dead fucking broke. I don't know that I even had the concept of being afflicted by it at that point. It was just fun. It was really, really fun all day long. I didn't need to have money. I had a bunch of friends, like all my friends were stand-ups. They were all stand-ups or improvisers. So everybody was funny. So I was laughing all the time, all day long.
Sounds like this was like the best time of your life.
Best time of my life. I mean, I cannot, one of my kids is nearby, so I can't, say it too loud, but no, it really, I don't know. Again,
but
it sounds like
you wouldn't want to go back to living in the closet with the burrito.
I wouldn't, because I already did that. But when people talk about like struggling for their art, it never felt like a struggle to me. It felt fucking fun the whole time. But I was broke. Looking back, I had no money. I had no car. My car burst into flames on the way to San Francisco, and so I never made enough money to buy another one. And it was. I had no money. I took the bus, 2 buses to get to my $5 an hour job. The point is, I was never grumbling. I was always like, all right, this is what we did. Because there was like I was in something.
Exciting. You were in the middle of like a exciting, bursting cultural crew, man.
I was in it. I was inside it and I had these fascinating, brilliant, people, hilarious people. Jim Crana, who taught me how to improvise, my mentor, just like that became a community, that all my friends were in this class, and it was an amazing time. So I don't, to answer your question, it didn't feel the same way it does now. And by the way, it's not negative for me, the affliction. I just accept it. I just go, in fact, in a way, I say, thank God. Thank God there's still something now that I do have kids and I do have responsibilities and whatever, that the thing is still, there's been enough positive reinforcement and that there's still something powerful enough to pull me toward it. Someone throws a bag of heroin in every few months and, it's like the golf shot, right? Like say you go golfing and you 10 balls in the woods, but you hit that one good shot and then you're back the next day. I think there's about 7 or 8 other cliches I could, if you have a second. Do you have a second?
Gambling addiction, the gambling addict who...
We just get a pen out here and we could come up with all the
metaphors.
Cliches, all the metaphors.
Well, on that note, because
you go ahead and sign off, but I'm going to be writing my metaphors here.
This has been an amazing episode. We'll have to do it again so we can swap dad Vietnam stories. Comedy and the tragedy versions.
Yeah, baby.
And
hey, let's do it right now. You want to be comedy? I'll be tragedy.
Well, we are, because my dad came back and yours didn't.
No, I mean with our faces, like the masks.
Oh,
you want? Yeah.
That'll be the poster for the show. John, man, thank you so much for joining me, bro. I really appreciate it, man. Really great. And tell us where we can, we will do this again. Tell us what you're working on, where we can find you. If there's anything you're working on that you want to direct us to, please.
Well, I was, I thought I was done working on, but then they added another episode to a Showtime show called Your Honor, which stars, oh my God. Oh my God, his name just went out of my head.
He's having one of these moments, people. He's having a blank moment, and I am enough of an improvised veteran to be able to fill the silence with sound.
Well, he worked
John
with
is having one of his celestial moments in the other world, where he brain farts and really suffers from.
He played trombo, and he was on Malcolm in the Middle, and
drugs.
He was in the meth show.
Breaking Bad.
Yes, who's the star?
Jesse Pinkman?
Oh, no, come on, who's the main star? You're killing me.
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston. That's nutty. Now I'm going to obsess about that for the rest of the day. So anyway, this show, apparently, there's another episode of that we have to shoot, and I think the other thing. Well, King Kong. I have a brief little scene in King Kong with because I was just about to go do some ADR for it right mid-March when the morning of they canceled it, so that was the last job I would have had. So anyway, yeah, King Kong and Your Honor, and plus a couple of other things I'm not going to talk about.
It has yet to be released, or
Your Honor.
King Kong.
King Kong. No, it's not out yet. It's soon. Who knows? Everything's weird now.
So watch Your Honor on Showtime.
Yeah.
And King Kong, which is a feature film, which I'm imagining will be released on video on demand somewhere. Look out for that. And
straight to radio.
Until next time, John, man, you're the best, brother.
I love you, Stephen.
All right, love you too, man. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Thanks.